In a Senate hearing room crackling with tension, Senator Josh Hawley unleashed a verbal barrage that left no one unscathed, zeroing in on Michael Jackson, a former Biden White House deputy director and gun violence advisor. The stakes couldn't have been higher: a contentious debate over public safety, police funding, and a report that Hawley brandished like a weapon, accusing Jackson of advocating policies that endangered vulnerable communities. With every pointed question, Hawley painted a picture of failed Blue City experiments and a Democratic agenda that, he claimed, had blood on its hands. Jackson, caught in the crosshairs, struggled to deflect the onslaught, his responses drowned out by Hawley's relentless charge. This was more than a policy dispute. It was a public reckoning, with the specter of gun violence and community safety hanging in the balance.
Thanks to all the witnesses for being here. Ms. Cook, I want to say thank you especially to you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for telling your story. And I'm sorry for what you and your family have had to endure. And it's powerful to have you here today. Thank you very much. I want to talk about some of these policies that have gotten to where we are today. Mr. Jackson, if I could just start with you. You were deputy director in the Biden White House for gun violence and a special assistant to the president. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
You're also affiliated with the Community Justice Action Fund. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm also a survivor of gun violence.
You were their executive director. When was that, the Community Justice Action Fund?
2021 to 2023.
And you're affiliated with them now?
Yes, as executive advisor.
Okay. The Community Justice Action Fund is, do you disclose your donors?
Yes.
All of the donors are public?
Yes.
You're funded by the Tides Advocacy Group, among others?
They're a fiscal sponsor.
This is, right.
They
that would be
handle
a
our
donor.
HR.
Yeah. This is a George Soros funded group?
No.
He's one of the donors?
No.
He's a donor to the Tides Advocacy Group?
Yeah, that's our fiscal sponsor. So they handle our HR, our back office, our operations.
Great. Okay. Great. So in other words, I mean,
we're one of 300 organizations.
Right, that they run. You are a subset
we
of
pay
them.
Pay them to be a fiscal
Well,
sponsor.
you are a subset of that organization, which he helps to fund, right? Okay. All right. Just wanted to get a level set here. So I want to ask you about some of the policies that you've advocated, because they're exactly what we see implemented in these blue cities, like defunding the police.
No.
Indeed.
We advocate for.
Wait, I haven't asked a question yet. We'll get to. I've got a lot of questions. Believe me, and I'll give you time. So let's talk about this report that you issued when you were executive director, a policymaker's playbook. And I'll ask to enter it into the record, Mr. Chairman.
Without objection.
Thank you. In this report, you advocate, and I quote now, defunding the police because the long-term goal is fundamentally to reimagine how the state serves its citizens in the project of public safety. You go on to say police departments traumatize residents through a destructive cycle of racist over-policing, and the answer is not to add any more money to police budgets. Talk to me about, why is it that denying policing to the most vulnerable communities is a solution? I know that's what the blue cities are doing, but why is that a good idea?
Well, look, I in no way stand with defunding law enforcement.
That's what your report says.
Sheriff Mike Sheridan, who taught me how to drive when I was 16 years old.
Wait. Your report, when you were executive director, said you wanted to defund the police. Do you renounce this report? Mr. Jackson, do you renounce the report that you authored as executive director? Here it is.
You're the second senator to bring up an op-ed
This isn't an op-ed. This is your report, a policymaker's playbook to reduce gun violence without policing communities.
Okay.
Community Justice Action Fund, copyright 2023, when you were executive director. Now you say you don't know anything about it. Now you say that you haven't heard of it, just like the Democrats who all of a sudden say, oh, we're all for the police. They've been advocating defunding them for years.
Okay, well, you can look at documents or you can look at results.
My question is, do you renounce this report now? You say you no longer agree with this.
And my answer is that I led the efforts to invest $42 billion in law enforcement.
You've advocated defunding the police as executive director of an organization that you still lead and are affiliated with.
Never see me advocate for that directly. What you see me advocate for
is
a comprehensive approach to reducing violence.
Right. The comprehensive approach is defunding the police, which is what this says
the entire time.
This is so typical of what the Democrats do now. After your policies have transparently failed and led to the deaths of millions of Americans, now you say you've never heard of defunding the police. Your own report recommends it on page after page after page. Let me ask about something else you say. Here's what you say we ought to invest in. Instead of funding the police, here's what we ought to invest in. We need to invest in programs that acknowledge the need for safe space initiatives
Yes.
led by lesbian, gay, bisexual, two-spirit, trans, and gender nonconforming people. What's two-spirit?
Well, look, I don't know exactly. You guys are pulling some interesting quotes.
This
here.
is from your report.
If you look at the report, the focus is on investing in violence intervention, outreach workers.
What is you say?
services.
You say that you shouldn't invest in the police,
So,
but we
yeah,
ought to
so
invest in two-spirit community programs that acknowledge two-spirit.
Look, we are not going to discriminate.
What is that?
We're not going to discriminate against any nonprofit that
What
wants
is
to
a
help us
two-spirit?
prevent violence in
What
our
is
community.
two-spirit? You say don't fund the police, but do fund programs that create safe spaces for two-spirit people. What is? I just want to know. I don't know what that is. I have no idea what that is.
Well, I honestly, I'm not completely aware of the language or
You
the
wrote
spirit
the
of how that was
report?
written. But what I'm telling you is that what
What is a
advocate for-
two-spirit individual? I mean, really, I'm saying this is your policymaker's playbook. You are the witness called by the Democrats on this committee, so I assume you reflect their views.
Well,
you don't want to fund the police. You want to fund safe spaces for two-spirit individuals. What is a two-spirit person?
I feel like I'm looking at a two-faced individual because you talk about
Oh,
reducing
no, sir.
violence.
You're looking at somebody who's
You're also
reading you your
speaking out
own
against
words, and I'd
violence
like to hear an
reduction
answer.
programs.
Here's the answer. The answer is you don't have any solutions. You want to invest in gobbledygook and take away money from police officers who actually keep our communities safe, and when you're called on the record, you deny it. It's all there in
invested
black and
law
white, and
enforcement.
your
We
record is
invested
there in black and
community-based
white,
solutions.
and it's a disgrace.
We reduced homicides by 31%, and as someone who's been shot and nearly killed, I take
Senate
offense
hearing
that you would think that
intended to
I
address gun violence and public safety policies
that you
reducing
deny your
erupted
own
into a
words and that
fiery
you are leading this
confrontation
committee
as
astray.
Senator
and
Josh
frankly, sir,
Hawley,
your policies are absurd.
RMO,
They're absurd.
aggressively questioned Michael Jackson, former deputy director for gun violence in the Biden White House and an executive advisor for the Community Justice Action Fund. The focal point of Hawley's attack was a report titled Policymakers' Playbook to Reduce Gun Violence Without Policing Communities, published by the Community Justice Action Fund in 2023. During Jackson's tenure as executive director, Hawley accused Jackson of endorsing defund the police policies that, he argued, had fueled violence in urban areas while promoting vague and ineffective alternatives like safe space initiatives for two-spirit communities, a term Jackson struggled to define under pressure. The hearing opened with Hawley acknowledging a witness, Mr. Cook, for sharing a personal story of enduring gun violence, setting an emotional tone. However, the focus quickly shifted to Jackson, whose credentials as a gun violence survivor and former Biden administration official made him a prime target for Hawley's scrutiny. Hawley pressed Jackson on his affiliations, particularly the Community Justice Action Fund's ties to the Tides Advocacy Group, which he described as a George Soros-funded entity acting as a fiscal sponsor. Jackson confirmed the relationship but clarified that Tides handled operational logistics, not direct funding from Soros himself. This exchange laid the groundwork for Hawley's broader critique that Jackson's organization, and by extension Democratic policies, were rooted in radical ideologies disconnected from practical solutions. The crux of the confrontation centered on the policymaker's playbook. Hawley quoted directly from the report, alleging it called for defunding police departments, which he claimed traumatized communities through racist over-policing. He challenged Jackson to justify why denying policing to vulnerable neighborhoods was a solution, accusing blue cities of implementing these policies with deadly consequences. Jackson pushed back, denying that he supported defunding the police and emphasizing his role in securing $42 billion for law enforcement during his White House tenure. He argued that the report advocated a comprehensive approach to violence reduction, including community-based interventions, but struggled to counter Hawley's rapid-fire accusations. Hawley's most pointed attack came over the report's mention of safe space initiatives for lesbian, gay, bisexual, two-spirit, trans, and gender nonconforming people. He repeatedly demanded that Jackson define two-spirit, a term rooted in indigenous cultural concepts of gender and identity. Jackson's inability to provide a clear explanation, admitting he was not completely aware of the term's meaning, allowed Hawley to portray the report as filled with gobbledygook and disconnected from the realities of public safety. Hawley framed Jackson's responses as evasive, accusing him of disowning his own work and reflecting a broader Democratic pattern of backtracking on controversial policies after their failure. Jackson attempted to redirect the conversation, highlighting a 31% reduction in homicides achieved through community-focused strategies, and taking offense at Hawley's suggestion that he was indifferent to gun violence victims. However, Hawley dismissed these claims, asserting that Jackson's policies were absurd and had led to the deaths of millions of Americans, a hyperbolic statement that went unchallenged in the moment. The exchange grew increasingly heated, with Hawley accusing Jackson of misleading the committee and promoting ineffective solutions over practical law enforcement funding. The hearing concluded without a clear resolution, as Hawley's time expired amid the intense back and forth. No formal outcomes, such as policy recommendations or committee actions, were detailed in the exchange, leaving the confrontation as a stark illustration of partisan divides over public safety. Hawley's aggressive questioning succeeded in putting Jackson on the defensive, casting doubt on the credibility of the policymaker's playbook and its recommendations. For his part, Jackson maintained that his work focused on balanced, community-driven solutions, but his inability to decisively counter Hawley's accusations left the senator's narrative dominant. The clash underscored broader tensions in the national debate over gun violence and policing. Hawley positioned himself as a defender of law enforcement and vulnerable communities, framing Democratic policies as reckless and ideologically driven. Jackson, representing a perspective rooted in community-based intervention, struggled to articulate a cohesive defense under Hawley's relentless pressure. The hearing, while lacking concrete policy outcomes, amplified the emotional and political stakes of addressing gun violence in America, leaving observers with a vivid snapshot of a deeply polarized discourse.